Now, this week, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood set out sweeping asylum reforms, saying the current system is out of control and unfair. The proposals and the words used by the Home Secretary have come in for criticism from some charities and religious leaders. The Right Reverend Dr. Anderson Jeremiah, the Bishop of Edmonton and the Diocese of London's lead for racial justice, said, "We are scapegoating asylum seekers for the failures and political divisions caused by successive governments in the last 15 years. Amongst other things, the new package modelled on the stricter approach used by Denmark narrows the appeal process, threatens visa bans on countries that block returns and makes refugee status temporary." So today we ask, have refugees become political scapegoats? Well, joining me to discuss that are Sarah Nathan, a co-founder of the organisation Refugees at Home, Dr. Sohail Janissary, a researcher in migration and mental health at King's College London, Dr. William Prescott, senior researcher, fellow at the think tank Bright Blue, and journalist Khadija Khan. Welcome to you all. So Sarah, Shabana Mahmood defended her proposed changes in Parliament, warning that if we fail to deal with the crisis, we will draw more people down a path that starts with anger and ends in hatred. These are strong emotions around refugees. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because we've had long years of real confusion and incoherence by the government policy. I mean, refugees do not form a very large part of our population, or even of people who are migrating to this country. We're way down the list of people who come, who go to Europe to seek asylum. We're really not very high. But what we don't do is deal with it at all well. Because we have no safe legal routes, then we have this kind of obvious thing about small boats. You don't see Ukrainians on small boats because there were safe legal routes. Because we have, it's very, very long process to get asylum. We have these hotels. Nobody wants hotels, but they are very obvious. They look like a bad thing. They are a bad thing. They enable a vast amount of profiteering, but what they don't do is give good lives to anybody. So what we need, yes, is better conditions, better controls, but they need to come largely from government policy, not by demonising people who are fleeing persecution and fleeing war. That is just, it's unfair, it's un-British, actually, and it's really unreasonable to do that to people who are vulnerable just because we can and the government's powerful.
I mean, William, they are such a small group, as Sarah says. The political focus on refugees is disproportionate compared to the size of the group and the problems they cause, but they get a lot of coverage.
Well, look, I mean, I concede there are definitely some people who do sort of try to weaponise this debate for ulterior motives, but also there's something profoundly psychologically, effective and damaging to any country that you have tens of thousands of people crossing the English Channel each year. I saw in my own country, Australia, I myself am a migrant, that if people want to, if you want to have support for migration, people need to feel like they're in control. People need to feel like they decide who comes to the country and the circumstances in which they come. And unless you take the tough measures that the Home Secretary's proposed, it's very hard to see how you build, you maintain consent for sort of any form of migration.
If you had safe and legal routes, then, which only Ukrainians and people from Hong Kong have, if you had safe and legal routes, you wouldn't have this loads of people coming by unsafe methods which are dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to try and get everybody in. I mean, Sohail, just thinking about what William said there, whichever side of the debate you're on, most political parties are following that sort of harder line compared to recent years. And that's because that's where public opinion is. And you can't get away from that, can you?
Public opinion is saying that people are struggling. People are struggling with work, with accommodation and housing and health, access to health. But these are the same things that people seeking sanctuary are struggling with, albeit in more extremes. And what Shabana Mahmood is trying to do is she's saying, oh, there's a divided society. What we're going to do is divide it further by targeting some of the most marginalised people. Actually, what we need to do is come together. We need to look at the issues that most marginalised people are facing, sanctuary seekers are facing, and address those. And in addressing those, we are going to support wider society. I come from a mental health background. We've got millions of people waiting for talking therapies across the country, waiting for good quality therapy. If you work with sanctuary seekers who are facing similar access to mental health issues, you might come up with a scalable, quality solution to our country's problems.
I mean, Khadija, when you hear what Sohail says, and then you look at YouGov figures which show that immigration is a big concern on the national level, but on the local level, it doesn't really feature that high. People are more concerned about the things that Sohail's talking about: cost of living, health, crime, housing. So it isn't on people's minds on the local level. But it does feel like that when you look at the media.
I would start my argument with this one thing, that what is the most un-British thing is to shut down the discussion by hurling around smears and, accusation of voicing far-right narrative or right-wing narrative. That is the most un-British thing. And when we talk about compassion, because since this whole case that we are listening, the whole criticism has been predicated on one thing, that is compassion for those people who are coming over here via illegal routes. I think compassion alone cannot solve the problems that we have in asylum-seeking process. The process is broken. The system is broken. We have to admit this. And we need to commend Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, for acknowledging the existence of the problem. Now, I would say that this whole effort tried to portray the British society as some kind of racist hellhole. I think this is quite disingenuous and quite dishonest argument, because in 2023, Policy Institute at King's College found that the UK is among the most racially diverse societies based on certain metrics, such as comfort with the neighbors from different races, and only 5% people of the whole population, they have problem with the neighbor, like from immigrant backgrounds, or only 2% people. It's very important. 2% people of the whole population, they have problem with having a neighbor from different race. So I think that is problematic when we tar the whole society with the same brush.
Is there a problem that when people want to say, I have an issue with the amount of refugees coming here, they're labelled as racist?
I don't think there is. I rather agree with you. I don't think there is, apart from when they clearly are. Of course, people are worried about migration, and specifically, maybe disproportionately, about asylum seekers. But I think what I'm saying is they shouldn't be, because actually on a local level, people are well integrated in many parts of the country. I mean, I run an asylum seeker drop-in. There were 85 people there, all waiting for asylum or have just got it on Thursday. Many nations, many Brits, all getting on perfectly well. We live in the same area, we use the same facilities. We want to get on, and we should. And if we could only allow people, for instance, to work while they're waiting for asylum, so they are not dependent on society. If we could get the systems working quicker, we would do better.
We have argued about safe and legal routes,
yes.
But how are we going to get that?
Well, we can get them by processing. We've got them for the Ukrainians.
See, people who are criticising Shabana Mahmood, they are not coming up with an alternative.
I've got loads of alternatives.
No, there is no alternative.
Just on that, it does work for Ukrainians.
Yes, the Ukrainians. No Ukrainians on little boats, right?
But the thing is, the problem, this is the problem, actually, that we try to lump everything in one thing and try to make it look like that we have some privileges for Ukrainian or other people and not having privileges. I think the people who are coming, we have been a very generous country.
Yes,
and we are providing people asylum.
We should be generous, shouldn't we? Because we are a rich country.
But I think it shouldn't be taken advantage of.
I don't think it is largely.
Listen, this is the concept that only white British people, they are concerned about immigration. That is not true.
No, I don't think it is
There are people from ethnic minority backgrounds who are actually very much concerned about immigration.
Let's try and move this on. Let's just move this on. And think about this idea about the PR of migrants and refugees. I mean, we don't really hear that much about it, do we, William? I mean, they haven't got a great image in the media in many ways, and we hear about all the problems. But then I think about the Public Service Union. Unison said the proposed changes would be devastating to thousands of essential workers and put services at risk. When you hear that, it feels like we're cutting off our nose to spite our face when we have things like what Shabana Mahmood is saying.
Well, I mean, I guess you can't have it both ways. You can't just both say refugees are a tiny percentage, but also refugees are so important for essential services, those services will collapse. But I do think that there is sort of a real issue, and this is particularly around those who come via the small boats, is there has to be an issue of fairness. I think a lot of British people do feel, well, look, I have to follow the rules of my daily life. I have to wait, on this lengthy list to get that council house. People also who come to this country legally also will feel, well, I had to go through all these hoops to come here legally. I think if you want to have support for migration and you want to have support for asylum seekers, yes, you talk about the safe and legal routes, and that's exactly what the Home Secretary is proposing to do. But you do need to deter people from undertaking journeys that are seen to be jumping the queue and are also quite dangerous.
There is no queue.
So Helen, and then when you think about it, the government spends around £5 billion a year on asylum support. Can you see why people like William are saying what they're saying, and people are concerned about it?
Look, this idea that these policies are going to change anything in terms of deterrence is historically completely inaccurate. For the last 120 years, every single policy we've done around migration is to make things harsher and harsher and harsher and harsher. Even this thing about Article 8, where people, before it was 6-7 years to get status through being here, then it was 10 years, then it was 20 years, and Shabana Mahmood is just repeating the same mistakes. If we want people to integrate and contribute, as Sarah said, they need the right to work from the get-go. If we want to copy other countries, as Shabana Mahmood seems to be keen to be doing, then we can copy Spain or Portugal, who gave an amnesty to people who were waiting years and years and years for a decision so they could get on with their lives, so they could contribute, so they could get out of government support and government-supported accommodation. And they've had great results in terms of labour market integration.
Khadija, the hard line doesn't work. As Sohail was saying.
This is the problem, actually. The problem is that we have made it all about the concern which are coming from one particular section of the society, which is white British people. They are concerned. I want to say that there are people from ethnic minority background who are concerned about this, and we don't have this problem in terms of only immigration. This is a multifaceted issue, and it is also linked with assimilation, with integration. What kind of cultures we are importing?
And we should be working
what kind of people?
That.
No, okay. We are not actually.
We are
not actually.
I think
we are.
Let Sarah respond to that.
It's really unreasonable.
Finish this point.
Well, it's really unreasonable.
Sarah, just let Khadija finish quickly.
Yeah, we are trying to make it all about demonize people who are coming here in a bid to demonize those who are already living here. And that is the problem, actually.
That would be quite wrong. But what we should be doing, if, for instance, we're going to follow Denmark in any way, which I'm not sure we should, then we should do what Denmark does about giving language lessons, making sure that people can learn the language, making sure people integrate. In this country, you arrive as an asylum seeker, you're not even allowed to go to an English lesson for the first 6 months. It's completely ridiculous. We want people to integrate, and also, if you're going to want people to integrate, which of course, everybody does, then if you make people repeat their application every 2.5 years, you are preventing them from becoming contributing members of society by a huge amount. People rely on
Khadija, I know you want to.
We are a democratic country.
I'm afraid
and we can have discussion about all these things.
And I think you're probably going to.
Go ahead.
You're probably going to have this discussion in the green room. I'm afraid we are out of time here in the studio already. It's flown by because it's been such a good debate. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.